At exactly 3:04 in the morning, Nathan Holloway was sitting alone in complete darkness inside the suburban home he spent nearly 20 years building for his family. The only light in the room came from his laptop screen reflecting against tired eyes that had not slept properly in months. His wife Claire was asleep upstairs. His teenage son Eli believed his father worked late most nights because insurance claims demanded long hours and endless paperwork. From the outside, Nathan Holloway looked painfully ordinary. 46 years old, married, responsible, quiet, the kind of man neighbors wave at without thinking twice. But what nobody around Nathan understood was that every night after his family went to sleep, he became someone else entirely emotionally. Not violent, not criminal in the way most people imagine danger, just hidden. And sometimes the most dangerous habits begin so quietly, they almost look harmless at first. Nathan's laptop contained dozens of browser tabs opened simultaneously across multiple monitors. Security camera feeds from neighborhoods he had never visited personally. Public social media profiles belonging to strangers he would never meet. Archived local news reports connected to missing persons cases, neighborhood disputes, online arguments, and random incidents most people forgot within days. Maps filled with saved locations, livestream recordings, public forums, private screenshots. Nathan kept refreshing the same web page repeatedly while writing notes nobody else knew existed. To him, it all felt strangely logical emotionally. He convinced himself he was simply observing human behavior, studying patterns, learning how people expose themselves online without realizing it. Over the years, the habit became ritual, a private world hidden beneath the appearance of normal suburban life. Then suddenly, a new email appeared. No sender name, no subject line, just one sentence. I know what you've been doing every night. Nathan stopped breathing for several seconds. At first, he thought it was spam emotionally, because paranoia often begins by attaching meaning to ordinary things. But deep down, Nathan immediately understood something terrifying. Whoever sent the message did not randomly guess. They knew. His hands started shaking while he stared at the screen, because suddenly the room around him felt different somehow. Smaller. Exposed. Nathan immediately began deleting search history, archived screenshots, anonymous accounts, and saved files frantically across multiple folders, even though another part of him realized people do not panic like that unless they already believe they are guilty of something emotionally. Outside the house, an unfamiliar dark-colored car sat parked quietly across the street beneath flickering streetlight. Nathan noticed it through the blinds, and for the first time in years, he felt watched instead of being the one watching. That reversal changed everything psychologically. The security camera feed mounted near his garage suddenly shifted position slowly toward the upstairs bedroom window where Claire slept. Nathan stared at the monitor, trying to convince himself the movement came from software glitch or automatic recalibration. But then the camera stopped moving directly toward the house and remained there motionless. Watching, Nathan stood from the desk too quickly, nearly knocking over coffee mug beside the keyboard. His heartbeat became so loud, he barely noticed Claire standing silently near the doorway behind him moments later. "Who are you hiding from?" she asked softly. Nathan turned immediately, minimizing screens instinctively before answering. But Claire had already seen enough over recent months to understand something was wrong emotionally. The late nights, the secrecy, the way Nathan constantly checked windows now before going to bed. The way conversations stopped whenever anyone entered the room unexpectedly. Claire once believed Nathan's online habits were harmless distractions connected to stress and loneliness after years of emotionally repetitive work. But lately, even she started sensing something darker growing quietly beneath the surface of behaviors Nathan insisted were completely under control. Nathan told her it was nothing. But people rarely whisper, "This can't be happening," to themselves unless part of them already knows exactly what is happening emotionally. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because the story of Nathan Holloway is not really about technology itself. It is about obsession disguised as curiosity. It is about what happens when someone spends years secretly watching the lives of strangers until the line between observation and intrusion disappears emotionally. Most people believe dangerous behavior always announces itself loudly through obvious warning signs. But the truth is often much quieter than that. Sometimes habits become destructive precisely because they never feel destructive while they are forming. Nathan kept telling himself he was only researching people, only observing publicly available information, only following patterns no different than millions of others online every day. But the human brain changes slowly around repeated behavior emotionally. What once feels unusual eventually becomes normal, then justified, then necessary. Nathan no longer realized how much of his emotional life existed entirely through screens and anonymous observation. Watching strangers argue online gave him distraction from his own failing marriage. Monitoring random live streams gave him sense of connection without vulnerability. Tracking patterns in other people's lives made him feel control. He no longer felt inside his own emotionally disconnected world. Then the police arrived. Not physically at first. Just flashes, images, quick moments buried between panic. Violent knocking against front door. Anonymous social media account uploading private photographs of Nathan taken from outside his own home. Comments appearing underneath accusing him of things not yet publicly understood. And through all of it, Nathan kept repeating one sentence quietly to himself while staring at the glowing laptop screen. This can't be happening. Then suddenly the tiny recording light beside his laptop webcam turned on by itself. Nathan froze completely because he had not activated it. And somewhere on the other side of that camera, someone was watching him now too. By the end of this story, one question becomes impossible to ignore emotionally. How dangerous can one harmless habit become when nobody knows you're doing it? Nathan Holloway was the kind of man most people forget almost immediately after meeting him, and in many ways that was exactly how he preferred living. At 46 years old, Nathan built an entire life around remaining emotionally invisible. He worked as an insurance claims manager inside a quiet regional office where routines rarely changed and conversations almost never became personal. Co-workers described him as intelligent, dependable, and strangely private. He rarely attended social gatherings after work, never shared much about himself voluntarily. Even neighbors living on the same suburban street for years struggled, describing him beyond simple observations like polite, quiet, and reserved. To the outside world, Nathan Holloway represented stability. A married father living inside calm American suburbia with carefully maintained lawn, ordinary routines, and predictable habits that looked completely harmless from a distance. But hidden beneath that ordinary exterior, Nathan spent nearly every night participating in behavior nobody around him truly understood emotionally. At first, even the audience would probably dismiss the habit as strange but harmless curiosity. Because technically Nathan never hacked systems illegally, never physically followed strangers, never broke into homes or attacked anyone. Instead, he watched people online obsessively, quietly, constantly. Over time, what began as casual interest evolved into something psychologically consuming. Nathan created fake social media profiles under different identities, joined local community groups anonymously, followed live streams from strangers across multiple cities, archived photographs, recorded routines, compared timestamps, studied arguments between people he never met emotionally. He convinced himself the habit made him feel informed, connected, aware of dangers other people ignored. But eventually Nathan stopped noticing how deeply his emotional life depended on observing strangers who had absolutely no idea he existed. And that raises the first terrifying question at the center of this story. What exactly was Nathan Holloway secretly doing every night after his family went asleep? Because once investigators eventually uncovered the full extent of his hidden online world, even people closest to Nathan struggled recognizing the man they thought they knew emotionally. Thousands of screenshots, archived conversations, private folders organized by names, locations, and behavioral notes. Fake accounts interacting with strangers under carefully constructed identities. None of it looked violent individually. But together, the pattern became deeply disturbing psychologically because it revealed someone slowly disappearing into obsession without fully realizing it himself. Then came the second question. Who discovered Nathan's habit first? Because the anonymous email appearing on Nathan's screen at 3:04 in the morning changed everything emotionally for one simple reason. It proved Nathan was no longer alone inside the hidden world he spent years building secretly online. Somebody else had been watching him too. And unlike Nathan, whoever targeted him seemed completely comfortable crossing lines far more dangerous than observation. Over the following days, encrypted messages continued appearing across his devices unpredictably. Some contained screenshots from Nathan's hidden accounts. Others referenced specific websites, conversations, and late-night activities no outsider should have known existed. One message simply read, "How long did you think you could hide behind fake names?" Nathan immediately began cycling through possibilities emotionally. Maybe one of the strangers he monitored uncovered him accidentally. Maybe somebody traced his anonymous accounts. Maybe a random hacker targeted him for blackmail. But deep down, another possibility terrified him most because it felt disturbingly plausible. What if someone close to him discovered the truth already? Claire Holloway certainly noticed changes in Nathan long before understanding what caused them emotionally. Their marriage had become emotionally distant over recent years in ways difficult to explain publicly because no dramatic betrayal or explosive argument ever destroyed the relationship directly. Instead, Nathan slowly disappeared psychologically into private rituals Claire could sense but never fully see. He stopped engaging during conversations, stayed awake until sunrise increasingly often, became defensive whenever anyone touched his laptop unexpectedly. Sometimes Claire woke during the night and found Nathan staring silently at screens filled with strangers' social media profiles while taking notes as though studying evidence connected to invisible investigation only he understood emotionally. Whenever she asked what he was doing, Nathan always answered the same way. Just reading. But people do not become emotionally hollow from simple reading. And Claire knew that instinctively long before she understood why. Then there were the missing hours. That detail became increasingly unsettling emotionally, because Nathan himself sometimes struggled explaining how entire stretches of night disappeared while he sat online, supposedly researching. He would sit at the desk shortly after midnight, planning only brief browsing session before bed. Then suddenly daylight appeared outside windows, and 6 hours vanished completely. Nathan began forgetting conversations, losing track of meals, ignoring work responsibilities. The hidden world inside his screens started feeling more emotionally significant than his actual life physically surrounding him. An addiction rarely announces itself clearly while it is happening. It disguises itself as routine first. Meanwhile, outside the house, strange things slowly intensified. An unknown person appeared repeatedly near the neighborhood late at night. Nathan noticed the same dark-colored vehicle parked across different streets during unusual hours. Security cameras malfunctioned randomly. Once, Nathan opened front door before sunrise and discovered cigarette still burning near sidewalk, despite nobody visible nearby emotionally. Another night, one of his fake social media profiles received direct message containing photograph of his own home taken from outside bedroom window. No text, no threat, just the image itself. That silence frightened Nathan more than direct warning ever could emotionally, because whoever sent it understood exactly how paranoia works. The human mind fills silence with possibilities far worse than explicit threats. Nathan became convinced someone monitored him constantly now. He checked blinds repeatedly, installed additional cameras, changed passwords obsessively. But none of those actions restored control emotionally because deep down he realized the one thing truly terrifying about being watched is understanding how vulnerable it makes you feel psychologically, especially when watching others was the habit that created the danger in the first place. Then came the discovery that changed the entire situation permanently. Nathan uncovered hidden recording software buried deep inside one of his laptops during routine system scan late one night. At first, he assumed malware infected the device randomly. But after reviewing logs carefully, a horrifying pattern emerged emotionally. Someone had been secretly recording portions of Nathan's online activity for months. Screen captures, webcam access, browser histories, even timestamps connected to anonymous accounts he believed impossible tracing publicly. Every private thing Nathan thought remained hidden was being documented by somebody else in silence. And for the first time since the habit began years earlier, Nathan Holloway experienced the same helpless feelings suffered by the strangers he spent years secretly observing himself emotionally. Long before fear entered Nathan Holloway's life, long before anonymous messages began appearing on his screen in the middle of the night, he was simply a tired man living inside routines that slowly drained the emotional life out of him year after year. That part matters because people often imagine obsession begins dramatically, but most of the time it starts quietly inside ordinary lives. Nathan was intelligent in ways that rarely attracted attention publicly. He possessed the kind of analytical mind that noticed patterns other people ignored naturally. At work inside the insurance claims office, he could identify inconsistencies in reports within seconds. Coworkers relied on him constantly because Nathan remembered details almost nobody else retained emotionally. Dates, timelines, behavioral inconsistencies. Tiny fragments of information most people considered meaningless somehow stayed permanently organized inside his head. But intelligence without emotional connection can become dangerous over time. And Nathan Holloway spent most of his adult life emotionally disconnected from almost everyone around him. The exhaustion surrounding him never looked dramatic enough for people to worry openly. Nathan still went to work every morning, still paid bills on time, still attended family dinners and school meetings whenever necessary. But privately, he moved through life like someone functioning automatically rather than actually living emotionally. The marriage with Claire no longer carried the warmth it once did years earlier. Conversations became shorter. Silence filled rooms more often than words. Neither of them hated each other, in some ways that made the emotional distance even sadder because relationships rarely collapse suddenly. Most disappear gradually through repetition, distraction, and emotional isolation nobody addresses early enough. Nathan stopped talking about how lonely he felt years earlier, because eventually loneliness becomes embarrassing emotionally once someone reaches middle age. People assume adults should already understand how to maintain relationships, purpose, and emotional stability naturally. But Nathan often felt invisible even inside his own home. Claire remained physically present, but emotionally somewhere else most days. Eli spent increasing amounts of time online with friends or alone inside his room, like most teenagers his age. And Nathan slowly drifted into routines because routines require less emotional energy than vulnerability. Every evening followed nearly identical structure. Dinner, television, noise and background, brief conversations about work or school, Claire eventually going upstairs, Eli disappearing into headphones and phone screens. Then silence. And somewhere between midnight and sunrise, Nathan entered the hidden world nobody around him fully understood emotionally. At first, the habit truly seemed harmless. That is the disturbing part. Nathan originally started spending time online late at night because he struggled sleeping during stressful periods at work years earlier. He would browse random public profiles, neighborhood forums, live streams, and local news discussions simply to distract himself mentally until exhaustion arrived naturally. Sometimes he watched travel vloggers walking through unfamiliar cities. Other nights, he followed public arguments unfolding across community pages and social media groups emotionally. Nathan became fascinated by how openly strangers revealed personal details online without realizing how much information they exposed publicly. Locations, routines, emotional vulnerabilities, relationships, schedules, patterns. The internet began feeling less like technology to Nathan and more like an enormous behavioral map of human psychology. And once that fascination started, it slowly intensified. Nathan began tracking recurring usernames across different platforms, saving screenshots from live streams, following local incidents through public records, and archived social media activity emotionally. He convinced himself the habit sharpened his mind somehow, made him more aware, more informed, more prepared for dangers hidden beneath ordinary appearances. Watching strangers online became strangely comforting because it allowed Nathan to experience connection without risk emotionally. He could observe lives unfolding constantly without exposing anything vulnerable about himself in return. That emotional imbalance mattered more than Nathan realized, because eventually he stopped interacting with people emotionally and started studying them instead. Over time, the habit became ritualistic. Nathan created anonymous accounts to join discussions invisibly. He monitored arguments between strangers as though analyzing behavioral experiments. He saved posts before users deleted them later. Sometimes he revisited the same profiles nightly simply to observe subtle emotional changes over time. Most disturbingly, Nathan never viewed himself as dangerous emotionally because technically everything he accessed remained publicly available. That justification protected him psychologically for years. "I'm only looking," he told himself repeatedly. But repeated behavior changes moral boundaries slowly. The more Nathan normalized constant observation privately, the less emotionally unusual it felt over time. Eventually, he stopped questioning whether the habit itself represented problem at all. It became part of his identity quietly, his escape from loneliness, his replacement for emotional intimacy. Nathan no longer needed conversations, vulnerability, or connection the same way he once did, because observing strangers online filled those emotional gaps artificially. Claire Holloway noticed the change long before she understood the full extent of it emotionally. As former journalist, Claire spent years investigating stories, interviewing strangers, and studying behavior professionally. She understood curiosity better than most people. But what disturbed her about Nathan was not curiosity itself. It was emotional withdrawal. Nathan no longer seemed interested in participating inside his own life fully anymore. He watched things constantly now. Conversations, neighbors, online communities, news reports. Even family interactions sometimes felt observed rather than emotionally experienced. Claire occasionally caught Nathan staring silently at strangers' profiles for long periods without explanation before quickly minimizing screens whenever she entered the room unexpectedly. At first she assumed it was stress, then distraction, then something far more unsettling emotionally. One night, during quiet argument about Nathan staying awake until sunrise again, Claire finally said something that stayed buried inside his mind long afterward. "You don't watch people because you're curious," she told him softly. "You watch them because you're afraid." Nathan laughed immediately because the statement sounded absurd emotionally at the time. Afraid of what exactly? He considered himself rational, careful, in control. But Claire understood something Nathan could not admit yet. People who obsessively monitor the lives of others are often trying to protect themselves psychologically from uncertainty, vulnerability, or emotional chaos inside their own lives. Watching creates illusion of control, and Nathan Holloway desperately needed control emotionally, because deep down he felt disconnected from nearly everything else meaningful around him. Eli Holloway noticed it too. Teenagers observe far more than adults realize emotionally. especially inside households where silence replaces communication gradually. Eli watched his father becoming increasingly secretive over the years. The hidden browser tabs, the late-night typing sounds through bedroom walls, the way Nathan minimized screens whenever anyone approached unexpectedly. Unlike Claire, Eli felt less disturbed initially and more fascinated psychologically. Nathan's hidden online world carried mystery, secrecy, and emotional intensity missing from ordinary suburban life. Sometimes Eli even wondered whether his father secretly investigated crimes or dangerous people online, because Nathan behaved with almost obsessive seriousness while working behind closed doors late at night. Nathan never realized how carefully his son observed those habits emotionally, and that blind spot would eventually destroy far more than his own life. The most dangerous part of Nathan Holloway's habit was not how secretive it became emotionally. It was how reasonable it still felt inside his own mind, while the behavior slowly escalated into something far darker. That is how destructive obsessions often evolve psychologically. Nobody wakes up one morning suddenly recognizing themselves as dangerous. The changes happen gradually enough to feel justified at every stage. Nathan still convinced himself he was simply observing publicly available information online. Even after his nightly routines crossed boundaries he once would have considered deeply disturbing years earlier. By this point, Nathan no longer just watched random strangers casually. He tracked them. Photographs posted online became sources of geographic information emotionally. Nathan studied reflections in windows, street signs and backgrounds, timestamps, weather patterns, and landmarks visible behind people during live streams. He learned how easily modern technology allowed strangers to reconstruct someone's routines without ever physically meeting them. Most people online revealed extraordinary amounts about themselves unknowingly. Morning coffee locations, jogging routes, grocery stores, apartment layouts, emotional vulnerabilities, relationship problems. Nathan consumed all of it obsessively, while convincing himself the knowledge served harmless purpose psychologically. Then came the fake accounts. At first, Nathan created anonymous profiles simply to access private discussion groups and observe conversations invisibly. But eventually he began interacting occasionally too. Small comments, questions, warnings. He told himself he only stepped in when people seemed vulnerable emotionally or when online situations looked potentially dangerous somehow. That rationalization mattered deeply because Nathan never viewed himself as predator. Quite the opposite. In his mind, he increasingly believed he was protecting people by monitoring potential threats online before others noticed them. That belief became especially dangerous once Maya Bennett entered his life. Maya Bennett was 32 years old, and enormously successful online in the way modern internet fame often develops unexpectedly. What started as lifestyle videos filmed casually inside small apartment evolved into millions of followers watching nearly every aspect of her daily life emotionally. Morning routines, travel updates, relationship discussions, live streams lasting hours late into the night where strangers online began feeling emotionally connected to someone they never actually knew personally. Maya built career around openness because audiences reward vulnerability online. But constant visibility also attracts people who stop understanding where observation should end emotionally. And Maya had started becoming afraid. At first, her audience dismissed the concerns as ordinary internet harassment because influencers deal with obsessive viewers constantly. But the messages Maya received became increasingly unsettling over time. Anonymous warnings predicting private events before they happened. Comments referencing locations she never publicly shared. Emails describing clothing she wore earlier that day before uploading photographs anywhere online. Somebody was tracking her movements with disturbing accuracy emotionally. Nathan became fascinated by the situation immediately. At first, he followed Maya's content because he convinced himself analyzing the stalker behavior might help him understand online threat patterns better. That was the justification emotionally. But gradually Nathan began watching her constantly. Every live stream, every story update, every deleted post. He archived screenshots, timestamps, and comments while constructing elaborate theories about who might be targeting her. Nathan spent entire nights comparing usernames, monitoring suspicious accounts, and documenting behavioral patterns connected to Maya's audience. The obsession consumed him emotionally because for the first time his hidden online habits felt meaningful somehow. He believed he was helping. That is what makes the story psychologically disturbing. Nathan genuinely convinced himself his behavior existed on the side of protection rather than violation emotionally. Sometimes he even sent anonymous warnings toward Maya through fake accounts when he noticed suspicious comments appearing beneath her videos. Never direct threats. Never obvious harassment. Just vague cautionary messages disguised as concern. Nathan justified everything internally by focusing on intention rather than impact psychologically. But intention does not erase obsession. And obsession rarely stays contained once emotional boundaries disappear completely. Then came the night, everything changed forever. Maya Bennett started livestream around 10:40 p.m. from her apartment, exactly like countless nights before emotionally. Thousands of viewers joined immediately while she discussed ordinary things casually. Upcoming travel plans, anxiety about online harassment, random details from her day. But longtime followers later noticed something different about Maya's behavior that night. She seemed distracted, nervous, looking repeatedly toward areas off camera while trying to maintain normal conversation. Several times, she paused mid-sentence after hearing sounds somewhere inside the apartment. Then suddenly Maya read something on her phone screen, and her expression changed completely. Fear. Real fear. Viewers watched her stand abruptly while whispering, "How would anybody know that?" before muting the live stream audio temporarily. Moments later, the camera shook violently. Somebody off-screen appeared to say something unintelligible emotionally. Then the live stream ended without explanation. Maya Bennett disappeared afterward. The internet exploded instantly. Millions of viewers replayed the final moments, obsessively searching for clues hidden inside distorted audio and blurry reflections emotionally. Social media filled with theories within hours. Kidnapping, publicity stunt, violent stalker attack, mental breakdown. Police searched Maya's apartment while news helicopters circled overhead. Fans analyzed timestamps and archived comments like detectives attempting to solve crime collectively online. Meanwhile, Nathan Holloway sat alone in darkness, deleting files frantically across multiple hard drives. Because buried inside his hidden folders existed years of archived material connected to Maya Bennett emotionally. Screenshots, schedules, location analysis, behavioral notes, anonymous account interactions. Nathan understood immediately how horrifying the records would appear if investigators discovered them publicly. Even though he still insisted internally he never intended harm, another part of him realized intention might not matter anymore emotionally once strangers examined the full extent of his obsession objectively. Then his phone rang. Distorted voicemail. Mechanical voice. "You should have stopped earlier." Nathan replayed the message repeatedly, while panic overtook rational thought completely emotionally. The voice knew. Whoever targeted him understood his connection to Maya already. Worse still, Nathan suddenly realized someone else might have access to his hidden world entirely. That fear became reality minutes later. Claire Holloway entered the office unexpectedly after hearing Nathan destroying external hard drives in panic. For several silent seconds, she stared at the laptop screen, displaying dozens of hidden folders Nathan forgot minimizing emotionally. Names, screenshots, archived livestream captures, detailed notes tracking strangers online for years. Claire's expression shifted slowly from confusion into horror because suddenly everything about Nathan's emotional withdrawal began making terrifying sense psychologically. "You've been watching these people?" she asked quietly. Nathan tried explaining. But there are some behaviors that sound worse the moment spoken aloud. Then came the final devastating discovery. Nathan noticed an anonymous account uploading screenshots of his own hidden activities publicly across online forums. Images from private folders. Screen recordings from inside his laptop. Lists of fake usernames connected directly back to him emotionally. Someone had been documenting Nathan's secret world from inside the shadows for months. And the most horrifying part came afterward when police investigators reviewing Maya Bennett's stalking case uncovered something impossible to ignore emotionally. The stalker targeting Maya possessed details matching Nathan Holloway's archived records almost exactly. Same timestamps, same locations, same behavioral notes, meaning either Nathan himself was lying about his involvement, or somebody else had been operating inside his hidden online world alongside him the entire time. The moment Nathan Holloway's hidden online activity became public, his entire life collapsed faster than he could emotionally process. One anonymous upload was all it took. Screenshots from private folders spread across social media within hours alongside archived messages, fake account names, location notes, and timestamps connected to Maya Bennett. Millions of strangers online suddenly believed they were watching the exposure of dangerous predator unfolding in real time. The internet does not wait for evidence once fear and outrage attach themselves to story emotionally. People decide who someone is almost immediately, then search only for information confirming the version they already want to believe. And Nathan Holloway looked guilty. That was the devastating reality. The screenshots circulating online appeared horrifying without context emotionally. Strangers saw detailed records tracking Maya's routines, archived livestream captures, notes about locations, and anonymous interactions connected to fake identities Nathan secretly maintained for years. News channels framed the story carefully, at first using words like person of interest and online fixation. But internet culture moved far faster emotionally than formal investigation ever could. Within days, Nathan became publicly labeled predator, cyberstalker, obsessed fan, possible kidnapper. His photograph spread across forums, true crime pages, and commentary channels where strangers analyzed his facial expressions, marriage, career, and psychological state as though dissecting fictional villain rather than terrified human being emotionally unraveling in real time. Outside the Holloway house, news vans appeared constantly. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. Parents quietly warned children about the family. Someone spray-painted "Watcher" across Nathan's mailbox during the third night after the story exploded publicly. And through all of it, Nathan kept insisting the same thing emotionally. I never touched her. But once public perception hardens around fear, innocence becomes almost impossible to explain convincingly. At the same time, new theories emerged constantly because the deeper investigators looked into Maya Bennett's disappearance, the less straightforward the situation appeared emotionally. Some people believed Nathan Holloway had been framed intentionally by somebody who discovered his hidden online habits and weaponized them against him. Others argued Maya staged her own disappearance entirely to escape internet fame or manipulate public attention psychologically. Another disturbing theory suggested separate stalker copied Nathan's obsessive behavior after infiltrating his anonymous online world secretly. Even darker rumors connected the case to organized harassment communities operating across hidden internet forums where strangers monitored women online collectively. Then suspicion shifted toward Claire Holloway too. Internet investigators uncovered Claire's background as former journalist and immediately began speculating emotionally. Some believed she discovered Nathan's activities long ago and secretly helped cover them up. Others suggested Claire orchestrated the leaks herself after learning the truth about her husband's obsession. Every silence became suspicious. Every emotional reaction analyzed frame by frame online. That constant uncertainty poisoned the investigation psychologically because nobody trusted appearances anymore. The audience following the story no longer knew who represented victim manipulator, or unreliable narrator emotionally. And somewhere beneath the chaos, Nathan Holloway himself started collapsing mentally. He stopped sleeping almost entirely. Not metaphorically, literally. Nathan spent nights pacing through dark rooms, checking security feeds obsessively, because now he genuinely believed someone watched the house constantly emotionally. Every passing car felt threatening. Every unknown account online seemed connected somehow. He installed additional locks, destroyed hard drives with hammer inside garage after midnight, recorded conversations secretly using phone applications because he became convinced authorities, neighbors, and even family members might twist his words afterward. Sometimes Nathan sat silently staring at inactive laptop screens for hours, unable to decide whether turning devices back on would expose him further emotionally. Paranoia changes people physically over time. Nathan's appearance deteriorated rapidly. Dark circles beneath eyes, weight loss, trembling hands. He jumped whenever unexpected notifications appeared on phones or televisions nearby. Claire barely recognized him anymore emotionally because the man she once believed emotionally detached and harmless now behaved like somebody trapped inside collapsing psychological maze with no understanding where danger actually existed. Yet despite everything, one fact continued frustrating investigators emotionally. No evidence directly connected Nathan Holloway physically to Maya Bennett's disappearance. That contradiction became central to the case, because Nathan undeniably monitored Maya obsessively online. His archived files proved that beyond question emotionally. Detective Serena Walsh discovered years of detailed records during forensic searches connected to Nathan's devices. Dozens of strangers appeared inside organized folders stretching back nearly 5 years. Public schedules, saved photographs, geographic analysis from social media images, fake identities interacting across multiple platforms. Nathan built enormous hidden digital worlds centered around observing people who never knew he existed emotionally. But none of it proved physical violence. No travel records placed Nathan near Maya's apartment during the disappearance. No surveillance footage connected him directly to the scene. No forensic evidence inside Maya's apartment matched Nathan physically. Detective Serena Walsh found herself trapped between two conflicting realities emotionally. Nathan Holloway looked psychologically disturbing enough to fit public assumptions about dangerous online obsession. Yet actual evidence suggested something more complicated happening beneath the surface. Serena Walsh understood internet behavior better than most investigators of her generation emotionally. She recognized something many people overlooked entirely while reviewing Nathan's hidden archives. Most obsessive individuals protect their secret worlds carefully from outside interference. But Nathan's accounts showed signs of manipulation. Activity patterns shifted unexpectedly across timelines. Certain anonymous messages appeared written differently emotionally. Login histories revealed inconsistencies Nathan himself seemed genuinely shocked discovering during questioning, which led toward the most disturbing revelation yet. Late one night, while reviewing archived account activity independently, Nathan uncovered evidence that shattered his understanding of the situation completely emotionally. Someone had been using his fake accounts secretly for months, not hacking random profiles, specifically operating through identities Nathan personally created years earlier. Anonymous messages sent directly toward Maya Bennett originated from accounts Nathan recognized immediately. But timestamps proved he was not the one controlling them during critical periods emotionally. The realization physically terrified him, because suddenly another horrifying possibility emerged. Someone else had been living inside Nathan's hidden online world alongside him, watching the same people, accessing the same archives, using the same fake identities. Meaning Maya Bennett may not have been targeted by one obsessive stranger emotionally. There may have been two. The truth finally revealed itself through something so small Nathan almost overlooked it emotionally. A timestamp. That was all. While reviewing archived login activity from one of his oldest anonymous accounts late at night, Nathan noticed messages sent to Maya Bennett during periods he physically could not have written them himself. One message was sent while Nathan attended mandatory work meeting inside insurance office, surrounded by coworkers. Another appeared while he slept beside Claire after taking prescription medication for anxiety. At first, Nathan convinced himself stress distorted his memory emotionally. But deep down, he already knew the terrifying possibility becoming impossible to avoid. Someone else had been inside his hidden world for years, and that person understood him intimately. The realization arrived slowly rather than dramatically, because emotionally Nathan's mind resisted the truth at first. He started reviewing login histories more carefully. Browser fingerprints, device signatures, IP activity, patterns. Nathan spent years studying behavior online, which meant he recognized subtle inconsistencies quickly once he stopped lying to himself emotionally. Certain anonymous accounts operated differently than he normally would, more aggressive emotionally, more manipulative, more willing to interfere directly with strangers' lives instead of simply observing them. Then Nathan discovered one of the fake accounts had recently logged in from inside his own house while he was away at work. Only 3 people had access to the home: Nathan, Claire, and Eli. For several long minutes, Nathan simply stared silently at the screen, unable to process the implication emotionally, because human beings naturally search for less devastating explanations before accepting unbearable truths psychologically. Maybe somebody hacked the home network. Maybe Claire discovered the account secretly. Maybe investigators planted evidence somehow. But every possibility collapsed once Nathan opened archived chat logs connected to the account activity. The writing style felt familiar. Not adult familiar. Teenage familiar. Suddenly, years of strange moments rearranged themselves inside Nathan's memory emotionally. Eli lingering near office doorway late at night, pretending to grab water while secretly watching computer screens. Questions about internet privacy asked too casually. The fascination Eli showed toward online drama, livestream culture, and anonymous communities. Nathan always dismissed those things because modern teenagers spend enormous amounts of time online naturally. But now every memory looked different emotionally viewed through terrifying new perspective. Eli Holloway discovered Nathan's hidden online activities years earlier, and instead of feeling disturbed, he became fascinated. That realization broke something inside Nathan psychologically because suddenly he understood the true horror of his behavior. Children do not learn morality only through direct instruction emotionally. They learn through normalization, through repeated exposure, through observing what adults quietly treat as acceptable behavior inside private spaces. Nathan spent years teaching his son that secretly monitoring strangers online was ordinary curiosity rather than violation emotionally. Eli simply absorbed the lesson more completely than Nathan ever intended. And unlike Nathan, Eli possessed none of the emotional hesitation still limiting certain boundaries psychologically. Over time, Eli created deeper fake identities than Nathan ever maintained himself. More convincing personalities, more manipulative emotional interactions. While Nathan mostly observed strangers from distance emotionally, Eli actively entered their lives digitally. He manipulated conversations, influenced online conflicts, and inserted himself into emotional situations using carefully constructed anonymous identities. The internet became a game of control and experimentation psychologically because Eli grew up watching his father treat strangers' lives like behavioral puzzles existing for observation. Then came Maya Bennett, and everything escalated beyond anything Nathan imagined possible emotionally. Eli did not simply monitor Maya online the way Nathan originally did. Eli became emotionally obsessed with her personally, her live streams, her routines, her emotional vulnerabilities. The more Maya discussed fear surrounding anonymous stalkers publicly, the more emotionally connected Eli felt somehow, because secretly influencing another person's emotional reality created sense of power missing from his isolated suburban life psychologically. He began sending warnings anonymously, predicting details from Maya's schedule using information Nathan originally archived years earlier. Sometimes Eli manipulated multiple fake accounts simultaneously to create illusion Maya was surrounded emotionally by invisible watchers everywhere online. And Maya noticed. That was the devastating part. While millions of followers viewed Maya Bennett's online fear as exaggerated influencer drama emotionally, Maya herself gradually realized something deeply wrong was happening psychologically. Different anonymous accounts knew too much. Messages referenced details she never publicly shared simultaneously from unrelated profiles. She became convinced multiple people monitored her life collaboratively somehow. Eventually, the fear became unbearable emotionally, because once someone feels constantly watched, ordinary life itself begins collapsing psychologically. Then Nathan uncovered the final shocking truth. Maya Bennett was alive. She disappeared intentionally. Detective Serena Walsh discovered evidence quietly proving Maya staged the disappearance after secretly contacting digital privacy consultant weeks earlier emotionally. Maya rented isolated property under false identity and vanished from public life deliberately once she realized the extent of surveillance surrounding her online presence. She did not disappear because someone kidnapped her physically. She disappeared because psychologically she no longer felt safe existing publicly at all. And the list of people monitoring her digitally included both Nathan Holloway and his son Eli. Nathan physically collapsed in a chair after understanding the full reality emotionally, because suddenly every justification he spent years repeating to himself sounded grotesque psychologically. I'm only watching. It's public information. Nobody gets hurt. All of it shattered completely once he saw what Eli became after growing up inside an environment where emotional boundaries online barely existed anymore. Nathan taught his son how to disconnect observation from empathy. That was the real tragedy. Eli never fully understood Maya Bennett as human being emotionally. She became pattern. Story. Emotional fixation existing behind screens for analysis and interaction rather than real person psychologically affected by constant surveillance. Nathan unknowingly normalized invasive behavior inside his own home for years, and Eli simply evolved the habit into something more extreme because younger generations understand digital intimacy differently emotionally than older ones ever fully realized. And perhaps the most devastating realization of all came afterward. Nathan originally believed the habit ruined his own life. But sitting alone in darkness reviewing Eli's hidden accounts, manipulative messages, and psychological fixation on strangers online, Nathan finally understood something horrifying emotionally. The life destroyed most completely might not be his own at all. It might be his son's. The conversation between Nathan Holloway and his son happened long after midnight inside the same dark office where the entire hidden world first began emotionally. Rain tapped softly against suburban windows, while computer screens filled the room with cold, artificial light. Neither of them looked at each other directly for several minutes, because sometimes silence reveals more truth emotionally than confrontation ever can. Nathan sat across from Eli staring at the fake accounts, archived messages, manipulated conversations, and screenshots spread across multiple monitors while trying desperately to understand when curiosity transformed into emotional damage neither of them fully recognized happening. Eli looked terrified, but not in the way Nathan expected. There was no violence inside him emotionally, no hatred, no desire to physically hurt Maya Bennett. That realization somehow made the situation even more devastating psychologically because it forced Nathan to confront uncomfortable truth about obsession itself. Dangerous behavior does not always emerge from cruelty. Sometimes it emerges from loneliness powerful enough to distort emotional boundaries gradually until another person stops feeling completely real anymore. Finally, Eli spoke quietly. I never wanted to hurt her. Nathan closed his eyes emotionally because deep down he believed him. Eli explained everything slowly afterward. The fake accounts, the anonymous warnings, the obsessive monitoring of Maya Bennett's live streams late into the night. At first, Eli only copied Nathan's behavior because it made him feel closer to his father somehow emotionally. Nathan always seemed emotionally distant from everyone else, but online he became focused, engaged, and alive in ways Eli rarely saw during ordinary family life. Watching strangers together silently from separate rooms became twisted form of emotional inheritance neither of them understood clearly at the time psychologically. Then Maya entered Eli's world, and the obsession became personal. Eli admitted he started believing he understood Maya emotionally better than people physically surrounding her. That illusion happens constantly online because repeated observation creates false intimacy psychologically. Watching someone every day through screens tricks the brain into feeling emotionally connected even when the relationship exists entirely one-sided. Eli monitored Maya's routines, moods, fears, and emotional patterns so obsessively, he began convincing himself he mattered inside her life somehow emotionally. But he never understood the fear he was creating for her. That was the tragedy. I thought I was protecting her, Eli whispered quietly. Nathan physically lowered his head into his hands because those words sounded horrifyingly familiar emotionally. They were almost identical to the justifications Nathan repeated privately to himself for years. In that moment, Nathan understood something devastating psychologically. Eli did not invent the behavior independently. He inherited the emotional logic behind it directly from watching his father normalize surveillance, observation, and emotional distance inside the home for years. Claire Holloway finally admitted the same truth shortly afterward. For years, Claire suspected Nathan's online habits were emotionally unhealthy, but she ignored them because the behavior seemed non-physical and therefore less dangerous somehow psychologically. Nathan never disappeared at night, never physically stalked strangers, never committed obvious crimes. He sat quietly inside office staring at screens while millions of other people online behaved similarly every day. Claire convinced herself the obsession represented stress, escapism, or emotional burnout rather than something capable of reshaping morality slowly inside the family emotionally. Now she realized the real danger was never physical proximity. It was normalization. The emotional boundaries inside the Holloway household collapsed gradually over years while nobody addressed what was actually happening psychologically. Privacy stopped meaning anything emotionally. Watching strangers became ordinary. Anonymous observation became entertainment. Emotional detachment became routine. Nathan's behavior taught Eli that other people's lives existed for monitoring, interpretation, and psychological consumption as long as no physical contact occurred. But emotional harm does not require physical presence. And by the time Maya Bennett disappeared from public life completely, the damage inside the Holloway family already reached irreversible levels emotionally. Later that night, Nathan sat alone in darkness after Claire and Eli finally went upstairs silently. The house felt emotionally hollow now somehow, quieter than before. Like everyone inside finally understood something they could never unknow afterward psychologically. Nathan opened every hidden archive one final time. Years of screenshots, fake identities, behavioral notes, anonymous conversations, thousands upon thousands of tiny moments stolen from strangers who never knew someone watched them from distance emotionally. Then Nathan started deleting everything. Folders disappeared slowly one after another across the screens. Entire hidden identities erased permanently. Archived live streams, tracking notes, password files, manipulated accounts. Years of obsession vanishing through small movements of trembling hands emotionally. Nathan expected relief while doing it somehow. Instead, he mostly felt grief psychologically. Because unhealthy habits still become part of identity after enough repetition emotionally, even when someone recognizes the damage clearly afterward. Finally, only one folder remained untouched near bottom corner of the screen. Watching me. Nathan frowned because he did not remember creating it emotionally. Slowly he opened the folder. Inside were screenshots, dozens of them. Photographs taken secretly outside the Holloway home across different months. Nathan entering work. Claire grocery shopping. Eli walking home from school wearing headphones. Security camera captures from angles Nathan never installed personally. Archived search histories connected to the family themselves emotionally. Notes. Timestamps. Behavioral observations. Someone else had been monitoring the Holloways for months. Not Nathan. Someone entirely different. Nathan stared silently at the screen while cold fear returned stronger than ever emotionally, because suddenly the story no longer felt finished psychologically. The cycle he helped create might already be continuing somewhere beyond his control now. Another observer. Another anonymous stranger quietly consuming lives through screens while convincing themselves no real harm existed emotionally. And perhaps that is the most disturbing part of all. People imagine dangerous obsessions begin with evil intentions, but often they begin somewhere much quieter. Loneliness, curiosity, emotional isolation. The illusion that watching strangers is harmless because screens create distance between action and consequence psychologically. Nathan Holloway slowly looked toward the glowing webcam mounted above the laptop screen. The tiny red recording light remained on, still watching him. And for the first time in years, Nathan truly understood what it feels like emotionally to become someone else's silent obsession. Fade to black. By the time the story of Nathan Holloway finally reached its end, the internet remained divided emotionally in ways that made the entire situation even more disturbing psychologically. Some people believed Nathan deserved every consequence that followed because obsession does not suddenly become harmless simply because someone never crosses physical boundaries. Others argued Nathan never intended real harm and became trapped inside behavior millions of people participate in every day without questioning emotionally. And that uncomfortable gray area is exactly why stories like this stay inside people's minds long after they end. Because the terrifying truth is that Nathan Holloway never viewed himself as dangerous. Not at first. He believed he was curious, observant, protective even. And perhaps the most devastating part of the story is realizing how gradually emotional boundaries disappeared inside that house, while everyone convinced themselves the behavior remained harmless psychologically. Nathan normalized watching strangers online for years without understanding his son Eli absorbed the behavior emotionally long before anyone recognized the damage forming quietly beneath the surface. By the time Maya Bennett disappeared from public life entirely, the Holloway family was already emotionally fractured by secrecy, surveillance, and isolation in ways none of them fully understood until it was too late. Which leaves one final question impossible to ignore emotionally. Do you think Nathan was responsible for what Eli became? Or did Eli ultimately make his own choices? Because depending on how you answer that question, the meaning of the entire story changes psychologically. Some people believe parents shape the emotional boundaries their children carry into adulthood, whether intentionally or not. Others believe personal responsibility eventually outweighs influence regardless of upbringing. And maybe the hardest truth to accept is that both ideas can exist at the same time emotionally. We also want to hear your thoughts about something even deeper. When does curiosity become obsession? Can online behavior quietly reshape morality over time without people noticing emotionally while it happens? The modern world has made observation easier than any point in human history psychologically. People monitor strangers constantly through screens now. Relationships, routines, fears, emotional breakdowns, private lives. Sometimes for entertainment. Sometimes from loneliness. Sometimes because technology makes emotional distance feel safe enough to remove empathy gradually. But stories like Nathan Holloway's force people to confront uncomfortable reality about what repeated behavior can normalize emotionally over time. Leave your thoughts down in the comments because conversations like this matter far beyond one story. And if you think Nathan's habit destroyed his family, Wait until you hear what happened after the next secret stayed hidden online.